Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there on this wonderful Monday morning, your start to your week. And I hope you folks are having a great start to your Monday and start to your week. And I hope everyone had a great weekend out there and stayed safe. Of course, it was very active across the central U.S. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday tornado outbreak pretty much over the entire weekend, you might as well call it. But it was very, very active Friday and Saturday, and then yesterday we had a few tornadoes in Texas. It looked like we had one pretty large one, also a wedge. A couple tornadoes in Oklahoma and Arkansas. If I miss a state, definitely let me know in the comments. But it's been very active. The good news is today, it's starting off pretty active in a couple states, but I do think overall for the next 24 hours, things will be much more calm compared to the last several days. Now, things look like they're going to uptick again as we are getting into tomorrow and then for our Wednesday. And we'll talk a little bit about that at the very end of the video. But let's just focus in on what's going to happen for today, the entire lower 48. And then, of course, we'll start to provide some information about the coming days. And just to, give you guys some information right out the dot, I don't expect the next couple days to be near as active as what we just dealt with over the last few days. So we'll break it all down for you folks. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Folks, I'm very behind on comments. I know I probably had a lot more extra comments than I typically do over the weekend because of what happened with the weather. And I probably missed a lot of prayer requests, but I'm sure a lot of people prayed over it. I will get to everything as we get into this afternoon, unless, my full-time job provides an extremely heavy workload, which sometimes that's the case on Mondays, as you guys know. But hopefully that's not the case. I can catch up and acknowledge everything, and just want to say appreciate all y'all and the support. The videos definitely had higher views just due to the fact of what happened. So welcome to any new viewers, and thank y'all for supporting me with what I do. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. So let's get rocking and rolling. So let's take a look at radar and what's going on. So, right over the central U.S. and really the east central U.S. this is where all the action is. And we got just enough cold air up here. We got some very late April snow flying around here in northern Minnesota. Definitely not completely unheard of at all. But let me know if you're tuning in from this area in northern Minnesota, what you're seeing as far as snowfall. If, the radar's wrong here, let me know. Definitely would like to know what's falling up here. You guys know I love snow. A little bit of scattered shower activity in central Minnesota, Wisconsin. More, embedded heavy rain kind of surging through Illinois, starting to move into western sections of Indiana, and just pretty much riding right over Lake Michigan. We got some storms maybe ongoing here in southern Illinois. Let me know what you're seeing. And then we just got widespread rains across Louisiana, and even a line of storms that's stretching from, it looks like it's just starting to move out of Texas now, but it's basically riding over all of southern Louisiana into western Mississippi now. And this is what's going on. The immediate eastern U.S. pretty quiet, but we do have some rain surging in on top of this ridge into New York State this morning. And then check out the ice up here in Canada. And then we got some energy in the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, from energy flying on top of this region. This is our next system, area of low pressure, that's going to promote another day of severe weather for tomorrow over the same areas that were heavily impacted, especially Friday. So you can already see all the pieces on the puzzle out here based off the radar. So let's keep moving here. Watches, warnings, and advisories. We do have some flash flood warnings ongoing right now. We have continued flood watches up, and then we have the severe thunderstorm watch down here in Louisiana that will expire here in the next couple hours. Dense fog advisory from a lot of just moist conditions across eastern Oklahoma, northern Texas, and even areas of Arkansas and Missouri. And like I mentioned, guys, the eastern U.S. is pretty quiet. They remain quiet. I say we've because I live in the eastern U.S. I live in central South Carolina, but we've been really spared from all the active weather that everybody in the central U.S. has seen because this ridge has really been preventing all the weather to get to us. So we've been kind of lucky. But the winter weather advisories are up for that snow flying around here in northern Minnesota. This will taper off over the next couple hours. Some winter weather advisories, even some winter storm watches up for the higher elevations of Montana, the Pacific Northwest, Cascades, and all those things here. We got some high wind warnings up for Wyoming, southeast Wyoming. High wind watches also. High wind warnings are in this mustard color. Just a notorious region to see a lot of high winds. They typically see a lot of that very often. I've noticed that the more I've talked more about the weather out west, southeast Wyoming is definitely the spot for high winds for sure. So we got some wind advisories down here for Southern California, Some frost advisories up here for northern Cal and a few counties in southwest Oregon. So that's what's going on as far as watches and warnings. Excessive rainfall outlook. We got this in this yellow area here, at least a 15% chance to see rainfall exceeding flash flood guidance within 25 miles in a given location. And this is really for what's going on right at this moment. We got a lot of rain, hefty line of storms, severe line of storms, if not severe, strong, moving across the western Gulf coastline down here in Louisiana, and will eventually surge into southern sections in the Gulf coastline of like Mississippi and those things before this pretty rapidly weakens as we get later into the day. Storm Prediction Center, we got the marginal risk up for those thunderstorms, and we could get some additional thunderstorms that develop down here deep in Texas. Just a level 1 out of 5 risk. Thankfully, thank the good Lord, we're not waking up to another enhanced risk or moderate risk. Just a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather, a marginal risk here basically for Jackson, Mobile, New Orleans, Gulfport, all the way down to Corpus Christi. And just got to watch as this line continues to kind of move through in the deep south if it can get kind of re-energized. But a lot of model guidance shows it weakening. But there is that level 1 out of 5 risk. And a big area has a risk of thunderstorms a day. And I'll actually show you a couple areas I'm watching, like lower Michigan. I wouldn't be surprised in the next few updates from the Storm Prediction Center. They put a marginal risk for lower Michigan. And I'll show you why here in a second. But we do got a risk of thunderstorms in the mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, so we'll watch out for that. So let's go on and move into the southeast frame here. And the HRRR model is really picking up on these storms pretty well here in like Louisiana. So let's keep this going here. And just a broad look at things like we always do. These storms will continue to kind of move into southeast and eastern Louisiana. Even southwestern Mississippi, you see this line of storms moving in. Then you see the southern end of it kind of trailing off into the Gulf of Mexico. And then we'll see how much of a punch this still has as it starts to move into like southern Mississippi. I do think it starts to lose some steam later on this afternoon, but you see a lot of scattered storm activity up here in Arkansas again, even northern sections of Mississippi, western Tennessee, western Kentucky. We got some storms up here also in southern Illinois and Indiana also. And then this continues, and we got to watch for some heavy rain overnight. In fact, we'll take a closer look at this here in a second. But I mean, this is like midnight, 11 p.m. midnight tonight. We got some heavy rain storms kind of moving through the Nashville area, moving through like Florence, Alabama, northern Mississippi, moving into Huntsville. And this will kind of weaken overnight, and then we're waking up tomorrow morning to still some energy left over that might refire over the Carolinas. We'll finally get some rainstorm action. I know I'm not going to speak for everybody, but I do think that most would agree that, hey, us here in the southeast, the eastern U.S., we'll take the blow a little bit for you guys in the central U.S. It's not fair for you guys just to get day after day of severe weather and just have to deal with all that. We can get some of these storms here in the eastern U.S. Of course, we're not pulling for dangerous storms, but I think everybody could appreciate a nice spring or summer thunderstorm every once in a while if it's not, producing EF5 tornadoes and super large hail or anything like that. But some rumbles of thunder, lightning, I feel like that soothes the soul sometimes. Not everybody, though. I know that some people have storm anxiety, but this energy will try to pop up some thunderstorms here in the southeast tomorrow. We'll see what happens with that. Just a little bit of a closer look at all this here. There's that line of storms down here that will kind of make its way through Baton Rouge, New Orleans. I think it will lose some steam, like I said, throughout late this morning into early this afternoon. There's those pop-up thunderstorms, and we don't even have a marginal risk for this up here. So I do think this is going to lack a severity level. Just some scattered thunderstorms from Jonesboro, Dyersburg, Memphis, Tupelo. I mean, you guys will have a risk of some thunderstorms. Even Little Rock, we'll see it. And this will kind of spin around up here. Could develop into I would not rule out a stronger severe storm with this up here at all. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they extend the marginal risk. Where is it right now? If they extend a little bit more into this area. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised at all. You keep this going, and there's those thunderstorms. This is like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, making their way through Florence, northern Alabama, starting to inch closer to the Cumberland Plateau. Heavy rain, embedded lightning, and thunder making its way through central Tennessee. And we'll see what happens as we're waking up tomorrow morning. Rainfall between now and the next 30 hours. A lot of this is for what's falling right now, but out ahead of this, a couple inches of rain is possible. Baton Rouge, New Orleans, inch and a half. Gulfport, same thing. And we'll have to watch overnight with these showers and storms in northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, and Tennessee that could produce inch and a half, maybe 2 inches of rain. And some of this rain will get all the way into sections of the panhandle of Florida tomorrow morning in southern Alabama. We'll see what happens. But up here in the Northeast, we'll get some energy kind of flowing out the northwest, some flow out that direction. And this will bring some showers across the Adirondacks, the Green and White Mountains, and they will diminish very quickly based off model guidance. But we'll watch. And after that, guys, I mean, nobody else really sees anything. We'll watch this energy as it cruises over Lake Huron into southern Ontario. But I think this loses some steam overnight too. We could get some pop-up shower and storm activity along Long Island, maybe around the New York City area. We'll watch for that. And as we're getting into the overnight hours, some moisture once again will greet you guys in Vermont, New Hampshire, maybe northern sections of New York State. Some scattered downpours could be there and greeting you guys for your Tuesday morning. And southern New England, maybe the Catskills, we'll watch for that. And, more energy over southern Ontario. Also, we'll talk about those storms that you just saw here in lower Michigan here in a second. We'll talk about it in the north central frame. But overall, guys, I mean, just kind of the same general areas. Seeing some showers today, mainly the interior areas of the Northeast. So the South Central U.S. was kind of already talked about Louisiana. I can't talk this morning, by the way, if you haven't noticed. But I need to do a little bit better of a job reiterating where I put Louisiana. Sometimes I have it in the South Central. Sometimes I put it in the Southeast. I would argue it's more in the South Central, but at the same time, I would consider it a southern state too. But we always kind of include it in both. So if there's always confusion from my folks that live in Louisiana, I do apologize. Technically you get, 2 frames if you think about it. But anyways, all this shower and storm activity will trail off. We've already kind of spoken on this. Southeast Missouri will get the opportunity for the same thing, just some scattered showers and storms, but it'll cut off pretty dramatically once you make your way northwest into Missouri. And then, deep down here in Texas, guys, some very isolated showers and storms could pop up. Like there's one intense looking one right here. But, I think the biggest threat with these are maybe just some large hail. But I don't think you're going to run the risk of that very, very large hail like you've seen over the last couple of days. But don't rule out an isolated, strong or severe storm two down here in Texas. Is certainly possible, that's for sure. So, but you continue to make your way into the overnight hours, and not a whole lot going on. Definitely some quieter times today. Just enjoy it. A lot of people are going to be cleaning up from all this nasty weather. The north central U.S., you're dealing with a kind of multiple different areas of moisture here. One's on the northern side of this low. You'll get moisture associated with the spin of the actual surface low. And then we'll get energy kind of way out in front of the surface low and kind of some in between. There's a lot going on here. But we'll watch for some storms that are going to try to develop here in central lower Michigan. And really, I would say more so heavily impact eastern lower Michigan before, heading into southern Ontario and things like that. And we could get some storms that will fire down here in southern Illinois, getting into western Indiana, maybe even a storm or two in Green Bay this afternoon, as you can tell, right near the surface low. And if you're worried in the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, I wouldn't be really worried about these. These are just going to be some late spring type thunderstorms, rumbles of thunder, some lightning. Could get a stronger severe storm out of this. You could, but I'm not going to completely rule out a tornado threat. But as far as a high end severe level threat with these, I wouldn't say it'll be the case. Now, like I said, I would watch out in lower Michigan though. These could pack a punch, but I don't think you have an outbreak of severe weather or anything like that. All that snow will head off into Canada. Some of this rain could switch to snow with some lingering moisture here in northern Minnesota. And then we're going to get some scattered showers that'll drift through the UP and Michigan later this evening. And then finally, this pesky surface low will head on off when we're done with it. But we will take a closer look at lower Michigan. Here's these storms right here. I could see an upgrade to a marginal risk in this region today. So if you live right here in lower Michigan, watch out for these storms just later on this afternoon. I mean, they could fire up, right after lunchtime, honestly. And then, for a few hours, will drift and really be kind of intense, most likely, through eastern Michigan if the HRR model is correct. And then they'll head on off and we'll be done with it. But just be mindful of some storms here in lower Michigan today for sure. The western U.S., We got some energy up here, lower pressure moving in, some scattered rain, scattered snows, just depending on your elevation. Snow levels are kind of low, for April 29th standards, I would say. But higher elevations of Idaho, Montana, some snow, Cascades of the Pacific Northwest. This will continue to just cruise on across the Northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, as another system begins to develop. And like I said, we'll promote that severe weather threat for the plains again for tomorrow. Not today, for tomorrow. But we could even get some thunderstorms that are possible later tonight and maybe like central to like eastern Montana. It's very possible. And then the energy will get rejuiced up. We'll have to watch for another area of energy that kind of moves into the Pacific Northwest tomorrow morning. But over the next, 24 hours, well, this is 48 hours, I'm sorry, several inches of snow could add up in the Cascades of Oregon and Washington. So, we're not quite done with this yet. I mean, we could see this pretty late into the year, but we're still seeing snows in those higher elevations. And I mean, this is a good bit of snow for this time of the year. Nothing unheard of or anything like that, but certainly get some heavy snow up here in the higher elevations. And then we look at Idaho, and we'll include Montana in this too. Idaho, higher elevation, several inches of snow to over a foot in some areas. And certainly the lower valley region's not really going to get any snow out of this, maybe just some chilly rains. But you get down here into southern Montana, the northwestern sections like Yellowstone National Park of Wyoming, you're going to get several inches of snow also, maybe a little bit of snow here in the Bighorn Mountains. So temperatures today, very warm in the southeast. The mid-Atlantic might be the hot spot today. Someone's going to get into the low 90s in a minute in like Virginia, the Delmarva region today. Very warm day. It's going to feel like summer. And, a little bit of rain, cloud cover is going to prevent you guys from warming up in Vermont, like the Adirondacks. But once you get into the southern tier of New York, now down near like New York City, southern New England, 70s, maybe some 80s. Somebody might hit 80 degrees here in like Binghamton or something. We'll see what happens. But a little bit more cooler conditions once you get a little bit further like north up into the New England region. Cooler air in this pocket right here, just where weak cold fronts came through and just some cloud cover, just 60s and 70s. And then we got this pocket of cooler air on the north side of this low up here with just 30s and 40s, even just some 50s down here in like northern Iowa. Pretty warm deep down here in Texas, but not too bad in northern Texas. And then temperatures out west. There's this opportunity across the high plains where temperatures are going to try to get into the upper 60s, low 70s as far north as like Canada up here. But there's a boundary right in here separating and kind of cutting in half the Dakotas, where the eastern half of the Dakotas is very cold for late April standards, and then the western half of the Dakotas, 60s and 70s in pleasant conditions. The Southwest has been pretty chill for a while now, and you guys have just been smooth sailing through April for the most part. So continue to enjoy your nice weather. It seems like all the energy has moved to your north, and even up here, like in the northern Rockies, the Pacific Northwest, it really hasn't been that bad, but it'll be pretty chilly today across the Pacific Northwest and the northern Rockies. So definitely a cool, kind of damp start to your Monday for sure. So as we continue to move forward, we do have a severe weather risk for tomorrow. And once again, we got the old dreaded yellow on the map. Hopefully this doesn't upgrade to the orange, which is the enhanced risk level 3 out of 5. But we do got a slight risk of severe weather stretching from like Kansas City almost down to Wichita. This does include like northeast Kansas, northwest Missouri, eastern Nebraska, the entire western half of Iowa, all the way into a small section of southern Minnesota. Marginal risk extending from Minneapolis, almost all the way to Fort Stockton, Texas. This includes some of the same areas that's been impacted by severe weather over the last couple days. So what is this driven off of? Tornado threat? Unfortunately, you do have a 5% risk of a tornado in this pocket right here. Right here in areas of Iowa and Nebraska, southeast sections of South Dakota and southern Minnesota. Very small section of the northwest corner of Missouri. So 5% risk of a tornado in the brown, 2% risk in the green. And then the wind threat, guys, actually, you have a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour in the yellow. But you see this hatched region, you also have a 10% risk of significant winds. So this is a higher end slight risk, I would say, in my opinion. So It's not going to take much to bump this to an enhanced risk. I wouldn't be surprised one bit we get an enhanced risk in the later updates as we're waking up tomorrow especially. So don't let it catch you by surprise. This is already kind of, like I said, a higher end slight risk. So, 10% risk of winds exceeding 65 miles per hour or higher. I'm sorry, I got that wrong again. 70 to 75 miles per hour, 65 knots or higher is what I meant to say. So definitely going to have a risk of damaging winds with these storms. And then the hail threat, guys. I mean, you already have a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. But in this hatch region, the black outline region with the dashes going in between it, that's a 10% risk of 2 inch in diameter or larger hail. And you're going to have this sweeping line of storms similar to Friday. I wouldn't say it's going to be as severe as Friday because you're lacking true thermodynamics up in this region, surface moisture. But I'm telling you, you're going to have enough for severe weather. And to just kind of give you, an outlook of what this looks like and why we're getting this. You see this area blue, that's lower pressure. The orange, reddish colors, that's higher pressure. In the middle, just kind of a middle ground. And you see this upper trough moving in. I want you to watch this area right in here of this blue area. Okay, watch how this kind of slings itself right into here. You see this kind of indentation right here. You see how the isobars are kind of buckling here, kind of bending. That is energy, and this energy, you see right in here, slingshots this way. I wish I could draw on this, but I don't have my drawer up, if you will. But this basically slingshots this way, and this is what we call a trough ejection. And basically a short wave ejects off this trough, and there it goes. It slings it through. See how it kind of has this little weird extension right here. And basically when that happens, this causes a lift in the atmosphere, kind of a jet of energy aloft, of winds aloft, this mid-level flow. This causes that lift for thunderstorms. And then this helps to kind of yank in, very briefly, just an area of favorable low-level moisture all the way up here. So the atmosphere has kind of calmed down this morning. You're actually kind of cool in this area as a cold front has moved in, with the associated low that just moved through to create all that severe weather over the last couple of days. But quickly the atmosphere will recover as far as higher moisture, basically more humid air will build into this region, and this will become an unstable environment once again up here as this little short wave kind of ejects off this trough. And you can see it the best just like this, where you start off tomorrow morning. I mean, you're dealing with dew points in the 40s in Nebraska and Iowa, a little bit more moist down here in Kansas and areas of Missouri. But in general, I mean, it's pretty dry air that does not support severe weather. But hour by hour, watch how all these numbers rise. We're getting into about lunchtime at this point, and then we're getting into the afternoon hours. And there's those pockets of dew points in the upper 50s, low 60s. And that will certainly support severe weather. Definitely the low 60s will. So you can tell you wake up tomorrow morning in areas of Iowa, eastern Nebraska, surrounding states. It's very dry. It doesn't feel like severe weather. The atmosphere will completely change throughout the morning and early afternoon hours ahead of a line of storms that will blast through this region. And, in response, you will have an area of energy aloft, not energy aloft, but you will have basically storm energy in the atmosphere. Guys, I'm struggling this morning. I think all those videos over the weekend just really drained me. Typically this happens right after a couple of days stretch of active weather, so forgive me for slurring my words or mixing things up. But you're getting into tomorrow morning. What I was trying to say is your CAPE levels, mixed layer CAPE levels, begin to rise in response to that low level moisture rising, those higher dew points. And sure enough, I mean, you get CAPE levels over 1,000 joules per kilogram, which I've said many times is certainly totally supportive enough for severe weather. Even some pockets over 2,000 joules per kilogram. And you see how it kind of just makes its way up, and it's very narrow for the most part, like no storm fuel over here, nothing over here, not much over here, but it just extends up into this region. That is because this little thing right here, this little kind of notch off this area of blue, this pulls in a flow out the south and yanks all that low-level moisture into this region. Okay, and the next thing you'll look at is that mid-level wind field. Okay, what does the winds look like way above our heads in the atmosphere? Well, because this little trough ejects this little short wave off the trough, this brings this what we call an exit region on this jet, And you see all this area right here. You see this like 50 knot mid-level jet. When I say mid-level jet, I'm talking about winds like 18,000 feet up in the air. This brings enough kind of like oomph in the atmosphere, if you will, like a lift in the atmosphere, lifting mechanism to get these storms going, and wind energy also. So that's why right here in this area, this is where you're going to be the most concerned about storms and very strong storms as this moves in. So what could these storms look like? Let's just take a look at pivotal weather. It shows a better geographical vantage point of this entire region. And we make our way into the afternoon hours, and there's those storms tomorrow, kind of making their way through southwestern sections of Minnesota, western sections of Iowa, a little bit more of a conditional threat down here deeper in Kansas, maybe deeper in southeastern sections of Nebraska and Missouri, but still could see them. But right here where the best lift is, you got to watch all these storms. They could produce tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds, and it'll sweep through. And at this point, we're getting into the I would say like 8, 9, 10 o'clock tomorrow night. And we finally get some storms ongoing and developing down here in northeast areas of Kansas. But you got to just watch out for all these storms, especially the southern section right down here where you're working with better moisture most likely. So we'll watch for those storms. We'll kind of re-go over all that information in the next video. But then we'll have another severe weather threat for Wednesday also. And this could upgrade also. As this area of lower pressure continues to dig down to the western U.S., this will promote kind of a dry line setup, and we already have a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather right here in the middle of the country. And all we know right now is that there is a 15% risk of severe weather in the yellow, and then also in the black outline region, there's a 10% risk of a more significant severe weather. So let me go on and get off here because I cannot speak this morning. But folks, that's all I got. We'll dive deeper into all of this as we get a little bit closer. Like I said, do apologize for the messiness this morning. I know a lot of people say, Mitch, we didn't even notice it, but I do. And a lot of times it bothers me, and the more I think about it in the video, the more I mess things up. So it typically happens like right at the end of a very active stretch of weather. It's like, in a way, I guess I'm worn out from just talking about it and repeating myself over and over again. But yeah, guys, did want to mention this weekend was a good weekend. I always like to give personal news. We finished our last game of the soccer season. We won. That was a really cool ending. We won with like 40% of our team missing. It was pretty wild. The guys just really rallied around each other, and it was awesome to see. Both my girls had an awesome year. I keep saying year, but because we have another season in the fall, which I'll coach probably 2 teams again. But both my little girls had an awesome soccer season. They both scored 3 goals, so that was really cool. But it's a team sport, and we had a lot of fun doing it. But yeah, guys. So that's all I got. Just kind of rambling at this point. You guys have a wonderful Monday. I think for once it's nice to kind of end this video with a little bit of time. Typically I'm rushing off. As you can tell, you look down your screen, it's 7:10 a.m. Typically it's around 7:32, 7:34, something like that. So a little extra time this morning just to kind of smooth in this video. So God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful Monday. Enjoy the little bit of a break with the severe weather, and I'll talk to you guys soon.